Hi, I'm Mark Duxbury. Softly is a weekly reading. This time, Dream House. The house had never been built, yet in every generation someone believed it would be. Soon, next year, when the right materials were found, when the right time arrived. Always there was that feeling that it was almost within reach. Somehow, year after year, the house lingered. Its imagined rooms, its halls and attics, its kitchen and hearth, held together in the soft corners of memory, expanding like mist through the family until it became part of them. They could close their eyes and see it, this grand old dream house. It wasn't just a memory anymore, it was practically a place, like a town you passed through on a train journey. Something you couldn't name, but knew in your bones. Once, a woman named Agnes tried to sketch it out on paper. The shapes and edges of it, the angle of the roof, she had always imagined, but the drawings kept slipping away from her. Each effort ended with lines going off the page, wandering beyond her pencil's control. It was as if the house resisted the attempts at being pinned down, as if it needed to remain everywhere and nowhere all at once, more real in minds than it could ever be on a map. Perhaps the house exists as a kind of promise, she said to herself, or a question asking if we could ever truly make a home out of our hopes. The children inherited her sketches, tried to reimagine them, but each of them saw something slightly different in the same shape. One son swore there were 3 floors and a turret. Another daughter insisted it was a low cottage, white-walled with deep blue shutters. It grew, it shrank, it had secret staircases and trapdoors. It had a round room with windows all around, perfect for watching the sunset. One daughter, Lydia, carried on her mother's tradition, always telling people, "One day we'll find a house. Just you wait and see." Lydia held on to her mother's papers, carefully smoothing their edges, her fingers tracing the faded lines. She spoke of the house as if it were right around the corner, just waiting for them. She bought old maps and studied property deeds. She learned the names of distant relatives, convinced that somewhere, somehow, the house would reveal itself. Lydia's children, meanwhile, came to resent the stories. They felt the weight of the house like a large rock in their lives. Why talk about something that doesn't exist? They would ask, frustrated, as if the dream was a chain around them. They were tired of the promises, tired of the endless retelling of a place that seemed to recede in any late afternoon light. "It's just a story," one of them said finally, tired of hearing their mother talk about it in the quiet, reverent way she did. Yes, but what if it's more? Lydia replied, her voice almost trembling with belief. To Lydia, and to those who loved her, the house was a compass point that kept her tethered to something larger than herself. When Lydia was gone, the sketches, the stories lay scattered in boxes. No one looked at them for years. Then, on a winter's afternoon, many decades later, a young girl named Margot, Lydia's granddaughter, opened an old shoebox and found a scrap of paper with faint, incomplete sketches. For some reason, that day, Margot decided to start imagining the house for herself. She didn't know if it was the nostalgia of that wintry silence in her grandmother's old house, or the worn creases of the paper, but she could almost see it, a door standing slightly open, with a little light streaming out. She imagined herself walking through the door, moving through a hall that smelled faintly of cedar. She never heard the old stories, had never been told about the grand old house that had only ever existed as a promise, but she felt herself pulled, as if she were part of something larger than herself. She ran her hands along the imaginary walls, traced the wood grain, felt the steady beating warmth of a place that was hers but not quite. When she looked up, it was almost as if she could see them, the people who had dreamed it before her, all of them by the walls, voices layered on voices, a house of words and could-have-beens. She could feel them watching her, the way you feel warmth when you close your eyes to the sun. She could feel, rather than hear, her grandmother's voice saying, "Here it is. Here is the house. You found it, just as we knew you would." She could hear herself too, in her own voice now, saying, "I'm home."